Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name is Brandon, and today I'm going to bring you another episode of the Weekend Roundup, another episode of News Bits, and we are going to look back at this weekend's actions in Europe's top 5 leagues and in European football in general. And unlike usually, we are going to start outside of the European top 5 leagues. We are going to start off in Portugal. It's one of the big leagues. Sometimes I wish it was in Europe's top 5 leagues. There is a lot of great football here to be seen, and we had a huge game this weekend. We had Benfica going up against Sporting Lisbon here. Now, this matchup was very, very important for both of these teams, considering that they are fighting for first and second place. Sporting was first place going into this match. Benfica was in second. Both these teams have been having very different European campaigns as well. And this match was very back and forth. It was a very feisty match. The fans were obviously into it. The atmosphere was beautiful. It was Benfica that was the home team. They were hosting Sporting here. And as you can see, there was tons of yellow cards. The game got a little chippy, it got a little feisty. And I think that it was really close in the first half. If anything, Sporting was the better team, though. They did have more clinical chances, and they would actually take the lead through Gokaris. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He opened the score right at the stroke of halftime, assisted by Marcus Edwards there. Very good build-up play and a very, very nice strike from him at the near post. And then it looked like Benfica were going to lose this match. It looked like that Sporting Lisbon was going to ride out this lead, but everything changed in the second half. I think that Benfica came out swinging. They were looking to at least equalize, grab the winner, and things were made a lot easier when Ignacio got sent off for Sporting Lisbon. And I think at that point it was damage control for Lisbon. They were just trying to batten down the hatches and, come away with a very hard-fought 1-0 win. But Benfica were really knocking on the door. That being said, it wasn't really coming for them, or it just wasn't really materializing. They made some changes, though, and then just at the death of the match, there was a set piece. I mean, the goalkeeper was up. The ball kind of pinged around in the box, and João Neves scored a really nice volley to tie it 1-1 in the 94th minute. Absolutely crazy scenes, but Benfica was not finished there. They had another set piece. Di Maria got the ball, beautiful ball out to Arsnes on the wing and the right side of the field there. He plays a really, really nice ball into Tangstedt. Hope I'm pronouncing that right as well. And then with a really nice backheel finish, he poked it into the back of the net. Now, the referee initially called it offside and disallowed the goal, but on review through the video assistant referee, he confirmed that it was a goal. And then with a 97th minute winner, Benfica come away with a 2-1 win. Absolutely crazy match here. Crazy scenes there to see at the end. I think overall, Benfica did get a little lucky, but at the same time, the way that they played in the second half, you could also argue that they were the better team, that they deserved to win. And then this match is very important for the Portuguese league because Benfica is now top of the table. And they have come under some heavy criticism this season so far. Obviously, look at their European campaign. They've been absolutely terrible. They've lost every single one of their matches. They are completely eliminated from the Champions League. There's still a possibility they can make it to the Europa League, but that's not looking very likely. They, in their most recent match against Real Sociedad, they got completely torn to shreds. They were down 3-0 within the first 20 minutes. And yet they're top of the Premier Liga. And not only are they top, they have thus far defeated both Porto and Sporting. So good results there. I think that the performances hasn't been the best, of course, but they're still getting results. And for Benfica's sake, hopefully they do improve their performances as the season goes on. And, who knows? It looks like they will maintain their top spot and defend their title in Portugal. But moving on to the Premier League in England. There was some interesting matchups here as well. And all across Europe this weekend, there was, a few bits of crazy games, and then the rest were kind of just, run-of-the-mill. It wasn't like 2 weeks ago where we had all these, major games and all these crazy games. It was raining goals in some of these leagues. There's bits and pieces of amazing games, but I guess the craziness was compartmentalized to little bits and pieces here and there. And you'll see what I mean when we talk about this game right here. We got Wolverhampton versus Tottenham. And Tottenham, I think, have been one of the best teams in the world so far this season. Now, it's hard to say how much of that is just because of, just getting into the groove of things, getting in a patch of good form, and also relatively easy opponents, versus is this team actually have enough depth, enough quality to drag it out for the entirety of the season. That remains to be seen, of course. They were top of the table for the while. They're no longer top, but I think they've had some tough results recently. For example, that loss to Chelsea last weekend. I think that was mainly due to the 2 red cards that they suffered, and a little bit of poor fortune on their part. This match here was very similar in some ways, where Tottenham opened the score. Even though they're the away team, they came out swinging just like they did against Chelsea. They opened the scoring with a goal from Johnson, and it looked like it was all Tottenham. I mean, Wolves had some chances, but it was all Tottenham. And then little by little, Tottenham started to kind of lose their grip on the match. Now, they still had some chances to basically kill off any ability of Wolves' comeback, but they didn't take those chances. And then Pablo Sarabia, former PSG player, former Sporting player, former Sevilla player, came off the bench, and then with a chance out of nowhere, a poor lapse from the Tottenham back line, he has a beautiful volley right into the near post. Very, very nice goal from him. This guy is a very, very talented player, especially if you've been watching La Liga for the past few years. He put the ball away into the back of the net, and then suddenly it's all chaos from there. Fast forward a few minutes later, he gets the ball on the right wing, and he plays a really smart ball to Mario Lemina, who's able to shuffle the ball over the line. And then, just as you know it is 2-1 to Wolverhampton. The game finishes, and Tottenham come away with a back-to-back loss here. Crazy results there, and it was a very open game towards the end. Tottenham can count themselves to be a little unlucky, but still, there was some poor defensive marking there. They should not have been able to concede those 2 goals right there. Elsewhere in England, Manchester United was able to follow up on their midweek disappointments in the Champions League with a 1-0 win over Luton Town, a game that they're expected to win, and a game that wasn't really that easy for them, a game that was very tough at times, but Lindelof was able to score there to grab the winner for a very tense and close 1-0 win. Arsenal came away with a 3-1 win over Burnley, trying to turn around some of their poor form that they had recently. Trossard scored, as well as Saliba. There was a red card from Vieira, though. But overall, pretty standard win from Arsenal there. Big surprise, though, where Newcastle fell to Bournemouth. They fell 2-0. A very strange game, very poor performance from Newcastle as well, who sits in 7th right now. They've been having very high and cold past few weeks. They've had they've had a great start to the season in terms of the results, but now it looks like they're starting to get a little fatigued. It looks like there's a little bit too much on their plate trying to juggle, finishing in the top half of the table with these heavy expectations from last season as well as European football. Then on Sunday, Liverpool came away with a pretty standard 3-0 win over Brentford. Mohamed Salah had a wonderful game, and Mohamed Salah, I think I've said this before in these videos here, he is having a really good season, but not a lot of people are really talking about it, and I think that's just because it's so expected for him to put up the kind of numbers that he's put in, that you don't really hear much people talking about these other players and stuff like that. But Salah is having a really good season, and with every coming season where he's just putting up serious numbers on the board, he's already a Premier League legend, and I think he's definitely up there in the top 10 Premier League forwards of all time. So very, very good result for Salah as well as Liverpool there. And then Fulham lost 3-1 to Aston Villa. It was a pretty good performance from Aston Villa overall. It was close in the first half, but I think overall, Aston Villa showed that they are the better team there. And then the highlight match of the entire weekend here, just in terms of how crazy and chaotic of a game it was, we had Chelsea going up against City, hosting them in Stamford Bridge, and this match ended 4-4. How often do you see both teams score 4 goals in a match. Not very often at all. It was a pretty good game. It was, probably a contender for best game of the season, no doubt there. And I think that both of these teams, it was very funny. They both played very similarly. Where going forward, they were very clinical. The players were very dynamic, very dangerous. But then defensively, both teams kind of just lacked their defensive shape there. I think it's, you've seen this a little bit from City so far this season, but then you've also seen it a lot from Chelsea as well. The match opened up with a goal from Haaland. He scored a penalty. Now, the penalty that he won, I think, is a little dubious. I personally don't think that it should have been awarded. It's a little bit of a soft penalty. Regardless, it was called in City's favor. He stepped up and scored yet another goal. But then almost immediately, Chelsea were back into the game. A wonderful header from Thiago Silva. Really good run off a corner, and then a header into the far post. You can criticize Ederson. Personally, I think that it was just a really good header from Silva there. And the next thing you know, it's 1-1. Only a few minutes later, Chelsea then grabbed the lead. Really good goal from Sterling there after a wonderful run-up, good assist, and he was able to tap the ball into the back of the net after that great run from Reece James. Sterling scoring against his former club. And I think Sterling has been having a pretty good few weeks, and he's showing flashes of brilliance, the brilliance that he showed when he was a City player. Because remember, this guy at one point was arguably a top 5 best player in the world. He's still obviously a very talented player, but he has kind of dropped off in terms of his numbers of productivity. But City was not finished there. They were able to equalize right before halftime. Header from Akanji. Chelsea just very, very poor marking at the back. And going into the second half, it was 2-2. Almost immediately after the resume, though, Erling Haaland scored yet another goal. This one was a very unorthodox goal. The ball came whipped into the box there, and then he kind of shuffled it over the line with the back of his thigh, essentially. He got contact on the ball, and he was sliding on the ground. But, hey, a goal is a goal. And Erling Haaland is not known for scoring the most beautiful goals, at least at his time at City. He scored some really nice goals for Dortmund. But at City, he's a goal machine. He's a poacher. He doesn't need to score the most beautiful goals because he's just putting in back the net at an uncontrollable rate. And at that point, I thought that City would really clean it up. I thought that they would just batten down the hatches, hold out for a 3-2 win. But Chelsea did not stop there. And then Nico Jackson, who's in great goal-scoring form, was able to equalize in the 67th minute to tie it 3-3. But even still, I always had a feeling that City were going to grab the winner and then come away with all 3 points, and that prophecy looked to have come true when Rodri, very stereotypically, he pops up in these big moments so far for Pep's City ever since he's been signed. He came up with a really nice shot after a good build-up play. The ball kind of pinged around in the box. Rodri came up with another really good shot from outside of the box. Now, on second viewing, this one did take a rather fortunate deflection off of Thiago Silva and into the back of the net. I think Silva probably could have done better there. He kind of just dangled out a leg. Probably should have thrown his body in front of it. But regardless, the ball ended up in the back of the net. And from that moment on, again, I thought that this was it. I was like, yeah, another winner from Rodri. But City left themselves open at the back, and then Chelsea were awarded a penalty. And then Cole Palmer, former City player who I'm still not unsure why City sold him in the summer. He stepped up and slotted away. Very, very cool. Next thing you know, it is 4-4 on the score sheet. And then there was no chance for either team to win it. It ended 4-4 on the night. Absolutely crazy game, very chaotic, very fun game to watch. It was pouring rain. I think there was a display of beautiful attacking football. Not so much the best defensive football you've ever seen, but when it comes to just pure entertainment, this is what you want to see from a football match. And overall, like I said, match of the season contender. So anyway, let's move on to Spain in La Liga. We had some really good games here as well. And on Friday, we actually had a banger here with 7 goals overall in this game. You had Athletic Bilbao going up against Celta Vigo. And this was a game that, I think it was hard to watch because you really feel for Rafa Benitez and his Celta Vigo side. Nothing has worked for this team so far this season. They are currently 18th in the Liga. They only have 1 win. And it looked like it finally clicked because we've seen pieces and flashes of brilliance here from particular players, from styles, but they haven't been able to string that over the course of 90 minutes and then also more importantly, come away with a win. But Iago Aspas, the legend for Celta Vigo, was able to score for Celta Vigo, but then almost immediately after sunset was able to equalize for Athletic Bilbao. But it was back and forth. Celta scored another, only for Bilbao to equalize again, leading into the second half where it was tied 2-2, and then Bilbao scored to make it 3-2, only for Celta to score again to make it 3-3. It was going back and forth. I think Celta was fighting for their lives. I think they were overall the better team, and I think they deserve to come away with at least a point here in this game, but luck is not on their side. They were able to win a penalty that I think was a little bit of a controversial one. I personally think that it was correctly given as a penalty. Iago Aspas stepped up. Like I said, the legend, the striker, he scored so many goals for this club. But it was a wonderful save from Unai Simon. It wasn't even a bad penalty from Aspas. It had a good enough power behind it. It was going into the bottom corner, but it was a wonderful save from Unai Simon in goal, who, personally I've been critical of. He's been Spain's number 1 for a while, ever since Lucho Enrique came in. And I've been critical of him, but this time he came up with a wonderful save. I think overall, even though he did concede 3 goals here, he was one of the best players on the pitch. And it looked like it was going to end 3-3, but out of nowhere, very, very unfortunate penalty was conceded by Celta Vigo. Berenguer stepped up for Athletic Bilbao in the 99th minute and slotted it away to gain all 3 points for Athletic Bilbao. Very important win for them because they are now 5th in La Liga. They are locking down that 5th point spot. But Celta Vigo, again, just cannot catch a break. Moving on onto Saturday, Girona had to come back from behind to win 2-1, but they still come away with a win here, solidifying their spot at the top of La Liga. Like I said, Rayo Vallecano scored first very early on, but Dobrik scored for Girona to equalize. Another goal from him, and then into the second half, Girona scored another. And like I said, they are top of La Liga, and I always say this every single time in one of these videos. They're playing good football, but it's a matter of time, or at least it feels like a matter of time before they're about to drop off. And then, reality starts to set in, normalcy comes back, and then either Real Madrid, Barcelona, or even Atletico go back to being top of the table. And yet, every week, Girona still come away with a win. Yet another comeback win, too. We keep saying, how long can they keep this up? But they keep keeping it up. So I personally, of course, let's be realistic. I don't think Girona is going to win the league, but who knows? Top 4 might be a very, very realistic and very attainable goal for them by the end of the season. Elsewhere, Real Sociedad came away with another 3-1 win to follow up their 3-1 win over Benfica in the Champions League. Midweek, very good performance from them. Overall, Real Sociedad is playing some wonderful football, just very aesthetically pleasing football to watch. And then Real Madrid utterly smashed Valencia 5-1. Now, let's be fair, this result, I think, is a bit flattering to Real Madrid. I think, obviously, they were the better team here, but 5-1 is a little generous. Dani Carvajal opened the score with a wonderful goal. The ball bounced up on the half volley, and then he whacked it into the near post. Dani Carvajal has actually been having a very prolific season. Remember his good goal against Sevilla there, that header, very surprising header. He's been popping up with a lot of, really, really good plays recently, whether it be goals, assists, things like that. But Hugo Duro, the striker for Valencia, could have had a hat-trick in the first half. Valencia were getting a lot of chances. They were, really kind of terrorizing the back line for Real Madrid, which looked very disjointed in the first half. But Hugo Duro was not able to capitalize on any of those chances in the first half, at least. And then right before the second half started, Vinny Jr. was able to make it 2-1. Very nice goal from him. He overall had a really good game, as did Rodrigo. Vinny Jr. has been having, I would say, a relatively poor last few weeks, last month. He's been in the media for the wrong reasons, where he's been, kind of riling up other players, getting into scuffles and arguing with the referees and stuff like that. But now he is, I think, back into a good confident sense. He has been scoring some really nice goals, as we've seen here in this game. He looks to be back in full form. He scored another goal in the second half, and then Rodrigo, who assisted Vinicius 2 goals, was able to score a goal himself. And then he was able to score a brace. So a brace from both Rodrigo and Vinicius, which is very good for Real Madrid considering how poor this front line was looking at some points last month. Hugo Duro was able to finally score to make it 5-1, obviously consolation goal. And it's really ironic because the goal that he did score was probably the hardest finish that he had throughout the entirety of the match. But like I said, it's a little bit flattering on paper because some of the goals that Real Madrid scored, especially those in the second half, were, complete just calamities, silly mistakes from individual players from Valencia's defense. But still, Real Madrid, by far the better player, even if 5-1 is a little bit flattering. On to Sunday, we had yet another comeback. Another late comeback. Barcelona was able to defeat Deportivo Alaves 2-1. This was a match that was a very strange match because Barcelona has been coming into this in very, very poor form. They lost to Shakhtar in the midweek in the Champions League. They played very, very poorly against Real Sociedad last week, and then they did lose to Real Madrid in the Clásico 2 weeks ago, even though, in my opinion, they were the better team. So they have been at a low point in terms of the morale, in terms of the results, and this match was supposed to be seen as an easy game to boost their spirits, considering they're going up against 15th placed Alaves, a team that has been having a pretty disappointing season so far. And yet 17 seconds into the game, Samu scores for Alaves. Very, very poor defensive mistakes from multiple players at the back. Gundogan, of all players, loses the ball right from kickoff. There's miscommunication between Araujo and Koundé at the back. It leads the winger Lopez in a wide open position. He's able to play it into Samu, who, with a very good finish close up, is able to beat Ter Stegen. And Barcelona looked completely shell-shocked. There was no response there. There was no immediate response. In fact, Alaves almost scored again, and then they almost scored again. Samu could have had a hat-trick. The first ball came into the box, and he was able to speed away from the defenders, and it was actually a very, very poor miss from him. He really should be putting that away. And then the second chance there that he did miss, he bodied Koundé off the ball. Koundé had a very, very poor game at center back. This opening passage of play was so poor that Xavi actually switched him with Araujo and put Araujo in center back, and then Koundé out to right back, even though Koundé has kind of reiterated in the media that he doesn't like to play right back. But anyway, he got bodied on that play. Samu lifted the ball over Ter Stegen, but unluckily for him, he also lifted it over the crossbar. This shot, I think, was a little more excusable to miss, considering that Ter Stegen was able to cut off the angle. Also, the build-up before that was so good. But since Alaves was not able to capitalize on those chances, Barcelona went into the second half. They looked a little bit more fired up. They were creating some more chances. But even still, it wasn't, a perfect performance from Barcelona. And then Koundé, ironically, now on the right side of the defense, whipped in a decent cross and right to Lewandowski, who has been having a goal-scoring drought, kind of a poor run of form. Granted, he was coming back from injury, but Lewandowski rose up with a wonderful header, an absolutely world-class header, where he had to kind of arch back. The ball was a little bit behind him, very high up in the air, and yet he was able to generate an immense amount of power and direct it right into the corner. A very, beautiful looping header there to equalize 1-1. Very, very important goal from Barcelona. And Barcelona was knocking on the door, but still, I think Alaves was holding on until the 78th minute when Alaves defender made an absolutely stupid mistake. He took down Ferran Torres in the box. It was a mistake that he did not need to make, but regardless, Barcelona got the penalty, extremely clear penalty. Lewandowski stepped up and, being the clinical striker that he is, put it without a doubt into the net to win the game 2-1 for Barcelona. But in the dying embers of the match, Alaves did have some chances to score. They were denied a penalty. Oriol Romeo had a handball. It was a clear handball, but he was bailed out because the ball hit an Alaves player in an offside position, so it was judged offside there. And this is a very important 3 points for Barcelona here, even though they have not been playing good. This has been a very poor run of form, and you can get away with this against a team like Alaves, but once you go up against higher quality opposition, this is not sustainable. Anyway, on from there, we had a very important matchup here in Spain. We had the Seville Derby, one of the most anticipated matchups of this weekend. Sevilla hosting Real Betis. It was a very fun game to watch. There wasn't a whole lot of amazing attacking play, but there was a whole lot of passion. There was a whole lot of fight between both of these teams. Real Betis, I think, was the better team going into the first half. Isco had a header that he probably should have scored, and then Bellerin did score a goal, but it was controversially ruled off. I think correctly so, even if it was a very, very close decision. Into the second half, I think it was more of the same. Betis was the better team, but Sevilla was still hanging on, and then Ayoze Perez was able to score after a ball was whipped into the box from a set piece. It bounced around, and Perez was the first to the rebound. He slotted it in. Good shot from him, but immediately after, or not immediately after, a few minutes after, Ivan Rakitic picked up the ball. He flicked it up in the air, and then with one of the best goals of the weekend, absolutely whipped it into the top corner from 25 yards out. Wonderful shot from him, saving his team because, like I said, Sevilla was holding on, but after that goal from Betis, it looked like they were starting to fall away a little bit, but he snatched a goal back for his team, and then this kind of reinvigorated Sevilla's squad, and then they were the more proactive team. They were the team that was pushing for a winner, and they had some close chances there at the end. Overall, the match finishes 1-1, which I think is a fair result considering that Betis were, more proactive team going forward, but Sevilla still had some very close chances, and they also, for the most part, did defend very well. Great performance from Isco, who was all over the place. His talent was on full display, but also really good goal from Rakitic, and a good performance as well from Rakitic, who, in my opinion, is a very underrated midfielder. I think he's one of the best midfielders of his generation, and I think, unfortunately for him, he has been, in some ways, living in the shadow of Luka Modric. Of course, they play slightly different roles in the midfield, but Modric is kind of seen as the hero of this Croatian team. But Rakitic is a very, very good midfielder, world-class midfielder on his day. Now, to the last game that we were going to talk about in La Liga, we had Atletico Madrid going up against Villarreal, a game that was important for the managerial side of the game, as Villarreal technically don't have a manager after going through the managerial ring-around, sacking two managers so far this season, versus on the other side, Diego Simeone, who just signed a new deal, solidifying his contract until 2027 with Atletico Madrid. And yet, it was ironically Villarreal that opened the score. Very nice goal from Moreno. It was a bit of a lucky rebound that the ball fell right to him, but still, the finish that he was able to redirect the kinetic energy off the ball into the back of the net. Very, very nice goal from him. And Villarreal was, in my opinion, by far the better team in the second half, but Axel Witsel was able to equalize. Heading into the second half, it was tied 1-1, and then from that moment on, Simeone made some proactive changes, some very, very important substitutions, and it was all Atletico for the rest of the match. Although it would take until the 80th minute for them to score. Good build-up play. Square ball play to Griezmann, who has been having a really good season. He is playing this new role, this number 10/number 8 kind of role in the midfield. With that goal there, he propelled Atletico into the lead. And then Samolino, who is kind of sometimes a left winger, left wing back, a new signing here for Atletico Madrid. And he's been having a really good season as well. He slotted home a very, very nice goal to make a 3-1 to Atletico. Some really funny scenes on the sideline there. We saw Simeone celebrating with the players. And this Atletico team this year, I have to say, has been a very strange team to watch because they're stereotypically known for being such a strong defensive unit, and they really haven't been that strong defensively, but going forward in attack, they have been very, very good. Griezmann and Morata have been having a wonderful season. They've been putting up some serious numbers between the two of them. And if you look at the table for La Liga, Girona's still top, like I said. Real Madrid's in second, Barcelona's in third, and Atletico is in fourth. But there's only a few gaps separating each of those teams there. So moving on to Serie A in Italy, we also had some really important games as well. On Saturday, we had Lecce going up against AC Milan, which probably most people would have expected to be a relatively straightforward win for AC Milan, and it looked to be that, as coming off of their very, very hard fought and very admirable win over PSG at the midweek. It was off to the races, and it looked like Olivier Giroud and AC Milan were picking off right where they left off. Very good goal from Giroud to open the score here. And then Reinders, the Dutch midfielder, was able to score his first goal for Milan as well, as Milan raced to a 2-0 win within the first half there. But into the second half, to be fair, Lecce made some chances. Sansone came off the bench, and this guy who just plays the game of his life every time he's going up against Milan. But still, Milan defensively just looked like they completely collapsed. It was a different team coming out of the tunnel there. Sansone scored a pretty nice finish, but from that point, it was just complete chaos. Only 4 minutes later, Lecce scored yet another goal to make it 2-2, and then multiple occasions, they could have made it 3-2. Giroud actually got sent off, which is ironic considering how good of a first half he had. He had a very silly double yellow for dissent at the referee. And then there was a goal there that was scored by, I believe the player's name is Piccoli. The ball came back from the goalkeeper. It was a goal kick, and then he kind of flicked the ball up and just took a shot. It was kind of a hopeful shot, but it was able to sneak past Mignon and find its way into the back of the net, and that would have been the last kick of the game. But the referee looked at VAR, and then he had judged that there was a foul in the build-up. I do not think that it was a foul. I do not think that the goal should have been disallowed, and it should be 3-2 to Lecce. But this disallowed goal did save Milan some of their blushes here, and this is in many ways a trend that we've been seeing with AC Milan throughout the entirety of Pioli's tenure. This team, for the most part, is a very young team. They are inexperienced, and things like this can happen. Juventus, though, did come away with a 2-1 win. Both goals from defenders, ironically, a goal from Bremer and a goal from Rugani, as they won 2-1 over Cagliari. Moving on to Sunday, though, and Napoli is in some hot water as they fell to a goal from Empoli. 1-0 result right here. Actually, a very nice goal, and it was a very, very late goal as well. Now, Rudy Garcia is in an interesting spot right now where it was looking like he might actually get sacked. Now, I think that might be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but let's be honest. Napoli have not been playing good this season, and especially recently, they have not been anywhere near the team that they were last season. Now, it is expected that there's going to be a bit of a drop-off, but you can argue that they need to switch it up, and they need something to kind of re-energize this team. Then we also had The Derby della Capitale this weekend, another one of the most high-profile matches to watch out for here. Lazio was the host this time, welcoming Roma to their stadium, and it was a very back-and-forth kind of game. There was not a whole lot of chances. It wasn't the most interesting game you're going to see, but it was definitely a fun game to watch. Like I said, tensions were running high. There was a decent amount of yellow cards. There was some fouls and stuff like that. I think that Roma was the better team just by a little bit in the first half. I think Karsdorp had a really good game. But then into the second half, Lazio kind of had the game swing in their favor. Luis Alberto had a shot, a very, very nice shot that cannoned off the crossbar. But beyond that, there wasn't really too many clear-cut chances, and I think a big part of that is because of how good both sides were in terms of their defense. Lukaku basically barely touched the ball, as did Immobile. I think both of the center backs and just how these teams defended as a unit was both very, very good. And as a result, this match ended 0-0. Not the most interesting 0-0 result you're going to see, but at the same time, it certainly was not boring either. Inter Milan was able to come away with a 2-0 win over Frosinone, and the highlight to talk about here is DiMarco scored probably the goal of the season so far. He picked up the ball near the halfway line and just sent an absolute missile over the top of the goalkeeper and then under the crossbar and into the back of the net. Very, very good goal. Goal came out of nowhere as well, but wonderful strike from DiMarco, and then Çalhanoğlu stepped up for a penalty to score to make it 2-0 to Inter, a lead that they would hold on to, which propels them back to the top of the table, as Juventus were briefly top of the table after their win over Cagliari. But now it is AC Milan in third, followed by Napoli in fourth, with Inter Milan, like I said, still top of the table. Now let's move on to the Bundesliga in Germany. And on Friday, Mönchengladbach came away with a 4-0 win over Wolfsburg. Very good result there, which is an important win for Mönchengladbach, as this was a must-win game for both of these teams, considering that they are hovering above just around the midway points in the Bundesliga. Results, a standing that both of these teams should be doing much better than. Then we also had on Saturday Stuttgart against Dortmund, probably the most anticipated matchup in Germany this weekend. And we talked a lot about Stuttgart in the previous weeks. They were one of the surprise teams coming up through the ranks this year in the Bundesliga. Guirassy was having an absolutely crazy run of form, scoring like crazy. Every single game he was scoring, popping up with a goal. But then Stuttgart started to fall off a little bit. The wheels started to fall off their tracks. And then Guirassy got injured, and his goal started to dry up as well. So it looked like the hype train had kind of died down. It looked like they had kind of settled back into reality, fallen back to earth. And on the other side, you have Dortmund, who started off the season very poorly, but recently were able to put together some results. And for example, in the Champions League, they're actually top of the group, considering that they're in a group with AC Milan, PSG, and Newcastle. They are somehow top of the group. You could be expected to think that Dortmund would come away with an easy win here, but in typical Dortmund fashion, they completely collapse in the biggest moments, as Stuttgart came away with a 2-1 win. I think it was a back-and-forth game for a majority of the first half, but I think Stuttgart were the better team. And Guirassy, who is back from his injury, scored the winning goal. So it is, the hype train for Stuttgart and Guirassy is back on, and it looks like hard times for Dortmund has fallen upon them yet again. And I think this just goes to show that there is some serious issues with Dortmund, whether it be their players, the mentality, the coaching staff, the coach himself. I think that there is some serious problems with Dortmund. They completely collapse at every big moment here. Now, Bayern Munich was able to come away with a 4-2 win over Heidenheim. Harry Kane raced to a brace to make it 2-0 to Bayern in the first half, but Heidenheim were able to tie it up, interestingly enough. It ended up 2-2 by the 70th minute, but I think the superior quality for Bayern ended up showing through, with Guerrero and Choupo-Moting scoring 2 more goals to make it 4-2 on the night. On Sunday, we had an absolutely crushing victory from Bayer Leverkusen. They defeated Union Berlin, who was the surprise team last year. They defeated them 4-0. There was a really good goal from Grimaldo as well, the new signing from Benfica. And I think that Bayer Leverkusen just keep up this wonderful form they're having. Between them and Bayern, they are the only two undefeated teams left in the Bundesliga. But Bayer Leverkusen is top of the table as Bayern Munich has one more draw than them. So they are 2 points behind Bayer Leverkusen there. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to keep up this good run of form, because they are playing some seriously good football. Xabi Alonso as a coach is proving to be one of the most sought-after coaches in Europe this season so far. And then elsewhere on Sunday in Germany, Werder Bremen were able to come away with a 2-2 draw against Eintracht Frankfurt. Very interesting and fun game to watch there. And then RB Leipzig came away with a 3-1 win over Freiburg. And the highlight of this match as well is how good Xavi Simons has been for RB Leipzig. He had a goal and an assist here. He's a player that people have been talking about for a while. Obviously, he came up through Lazio, then signed for PSG, was in the Eredivisie for a while, and now he is at Leipzig, and he is completely lighting up the Bundesliga. He has been one of the best players in the world this season. Now moving on to France with Ligue 1. We also had a matchup here. Big team was playing. We had PSG going up against Reims. They won 3-0, all 3 goals from Mbappe. Pretty standard win from PSG, although an important win considering that it hasn't been smooth sailing for them, and also Reims aren't one of these bottom feeders in Ligue 1, at least this season. They are 5th in the table, but overall, very commendable performance from PSG, and at least from an outsider looking in, a very good performance from Mbappe. But Luis Enrique did not seem to think so, as he came out in an interview saying that, obviously Mbappe did great scoring his goals, but he was not happy with Mbappe's performance. He didn't really iterate why, leading a lot of people, including myself, to speculate on that. It could be that he just didn't participate in the build-up play enough or something like that. Maybe it's his attitude in the locker room. Maybe his mind is not fully into it. That's my speculation, considering there's all this transfer talk about Mbappe. But who knows until one of these players or the coach speaks out again in the media. On Sunday, now we had an important result here for Lyon. They beat Rennes 1-0, and they come away with their first ever win in Ligue 1 this season. Now, they're still 18th. They're still bottom of the table, but at least they have their first win so far. So, anyway, that has been my recap for the weekend here in Europe's top 5 leagues. Let me know what you think of all these matches here. We had some crazy matchups. We had some derbies. We had some amazing goals. We had some really high-scoring fixtures. Let me know what you think of all these matches here. Make sure to type all your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with a friend. But anyway, guys, my name is Brandon, and thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a nice rest of your night.